Here are some common problems you may encounter and ways you can troubleshoot them. First, if the valve isn't operating properly, make sure it is installed correctly. Refer to the installation steps and guidelines we talked about earlier. Make sure the valve is appropriate for the media flowing through it. An air or water valve will not work if the media used is steam or oil. Also make sure that the pressure differential is adequate for the valve being used. Make sure the valve is properly oriented. Is the pilot tube upright and vertical, plus or minus 7 degrees? Finally, make sure the supply voltage is correct. Now, let's look at possible solutions for specific problems. If the valve won't open at all, maybe the pressure differential is less than 5 psi, or the stated minimum on the valve. Check the inlet versus outlet pressure. Check the valve's pressure differential rating against the application pressure requirements to make sure you have the right valve for the job. Remember, piston pilot valves require a minimum 5 psi differential across the valve. Another reason the valve won't open may be that you're using a high-pressure valve in a low-pressure application. If that's the case, you may have to re-specify a valve with a lower pressure rating, or reduce downstream restrictions in the system, or you may be starving the valve. For example, this can happen if you try to feed a 3-inch valve with a 1-inch pipe. If the coil on the valve burns out rapidly, check the wiring. Single voltage and dual voltage coils are wired differently. Also, check the line voltage with a meter. There may be electrical surges or spikes, or the voltage may be too low. Poor maintenance, incorrectly installed nips, operating at a temperature above the coil rating, voltage surges, and using an incorrect pilot valve can also cause coils to burn out rapidly. Check the end plates and nips to see if they are missing or assembled incorrectly. If the valve receives signals from a computer, use an oscilloscope to determine any effects of superimposed voltages. Here's how you properly install nips on an M-type valve.
Provided that you have a can-type coil, the rectangular-shaped coil's nips are self-contained.
And this is how to install nips on a Q-type. Remember, if nips are not installed correctly, they may burn out the coil. If the valve malfunctions, you may have a problem with the piston assembly. The piston ring groove may have grit behind it, or the piston timing orifice may be out of specification or clogged. Valve malfunction may also be caused by deposits on the internal parts, causing interference with the piston. If the valve stutters when it's trying to open, the static differential may be higher than the dynamic differential. Check the dynamic differential. Another possible reason the valve won't close may be because of a damaged bonnet assembly. If the valve won't close bubble tight, there may be a leaky seat screw or damaged bridge. The piston disc may need to be repaired or replaced, or the wrong piston disc material may have been used. On normally open valves, the pilot lift spring may be broken. The last common problem you may encounter is a valve that opens once but won't open again. This sometimes happens on normally closed valves. If it's a new application, check for pipe dope or other obstructions inside the valve. Check the differential pressure with a gauge. Then check the piston ring for any foreign matter, especially under the disc. To prevent foreign matter from reaching the piston ring, Gould recommends installing a strainer or screen before the valve. You may have to reduce the back pressure or re-specify a valve with a lower differential rating. By following these troubleshooting guidelines, you can often diagnose and solve common problems yourself and reduce unnecessary downtime.